All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Candace Perry, and I am the Environmental Justice Director at New Jersey's Department of Environmental Protection. And I'm so delighted to be sitting here with my two fellow panelists. So we have Sean LaTourette, which is our commissioner for the NJDEP, and also Lisa Garcia, who is our Region 2 administrator for EPA. So we are gathered here to speak about environmental justice in Salem County. Unfortunately, there are some communities, because of their race, income, and their ability to speak English, that experience more environmental burdens like flooding, air, water, and soil pollution than others. Those same communities also tend to have less environmental benefits like green spaces and trees that cool and clean the air and soak up stormwater runoff and provide relief from the effects of extreme heat. We know that environmental justice issues come in many forms and they span across every region of our state, including in dense and urban places, but also in suburban and rural communities. Environmental injustices occur in our inland communities and those along our rivers and bays. In this region, minority and low-income communities are contending with illegal dumping, drinking water contamination, and flooding, which will only get worse due to climate change. This is why it is so important for government people like us to hear directly from you so that we can incorporate your lived experiences into the work that we do every day. So Salem County is our third stop on our environmental justice tour this year, and we visited 7 counties last year, and there will be more stops along the way before the year's end. So I want to give a special thanks to PSE&G for hosting us in this facility here in Salem City. Thanks so much to you. And also want to acknowledge if we have any elected or appointed officials in the room. Thanks for being here if there are any. And also if there are any elected and appointed officials online, we see you. Thanks so much for being here. So our agenda for today is very simple. In a minute, I'm going to pass the floor over to you for you to ask your question or raise your comment or concern for us to listen and hear, and hopefully have some good discussion back and forth. And I'll have some instructions for you on just how we'll make that happen. But first, I want to pass the floor over to my two fellow panelists to give some opening remarks. So over to you, Commissioner.
Well, good evening, everyone. Oh, y'all can do, that was good. You can do a little better though, right? Come on, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
All right. First of all, I am really happy to see such a full room, and again, want to thank our friends at PSE&G for opening their doors to us, to this community, and allowing us to hold this session here. As Candace said, our goal here is pretty simple, which is surprising for government. We just want to hear from all of you that are gathered here, that we're hoping that you share with us some of your concerns about your lived experience of your environment, and the same is true for the folks who have gathered to join us online. We want to hear from you as well. I believe that the team from our Office of Environmental Justice noted around upwards of 60 registrants online. I'm not sure how many are there, but Candace will have some instructions so that we include your participation in this session as well, holding it in a hybrid style, which we've had more and more success with as our tour has gone on. We're grateful to be joined again, as we have throughout this tour, with our partners from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, my friend and colleague, Regional Administrator Lisa Garcia, who'll share a few words with you as well. I just want to start out with something really important, a bit of explanation about why we do this at all. As Candace mentioned, not everyone shares equally in the benefits of a clean and healthy environment. And we've been on a mission to right that ship, as it were. It takes time, but more importantly, it takes an understanding of what the people we serve, you all, experience every day in your own communities, because we're government professionals. We work to develop policy that we think will help the communities that we serve. But I can tell you that we can sit in some imposing government building in Trenton and think that we have great ideas, but we simply do not know without engaging with the people we serve about their environment if our plans and hopes and good intent to improve environmental conditions is meeting you where you are. And that's what this is about. Can't promise you that we'll have a response to every question you raise in this space tonight, but I can promise you that we'll look into your issue if we don't have an answer for you and find one, and help you access the people and resources to help meet your needs, because that's what government should do. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Regional Administrator Garcia.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Commissioner. It's always great to be on the road with you again. And thank you, Candace. Lisa Garcia from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, covering Region 2, which is New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and 8 Indian nations, mainly in upstate New York. So it's really great to be here and to be on these listening tours that we've been joining New Jersey DEP on, to really listen and figure out how we do our work. I just want to mention I'm here with my colleague, Chief of Staff Olivia Glenn, who is from right down, well, not right down the road, but Camden County. And so that's close, right? So we have definitely been grateful and thankful that we can join these environmental justice listening sessions, because as some of you know, President Biden came into office and quickly signed a few executive orders, one around racial equity, one around environmental justice and climate justice. And that kind of set the stage of how the priorities are going to flow down to the regions in EPA, making sure that we kind of implement that vision and the commitment. And one of the great things that came about a little bit after the president came into office was Congress passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, which actually gave EPA about $60 billion for things like water infrastructure, getting out the lead, so removing lead service lines, also cleaning up Superfund sites, orphan sites, for instance, that haven't been contaminated sites that have been cleaned up. And then a year later, the Inflation Reduction Act passed, the IRA as we call it, which really gave us a lot of money, $42 billion to focus in on climate and greenhouse gas reduction funds. So the point is that we have this priority to make sure that we're focusing on a lot of the issues that Candace and the Commissioner mentioned about investing in disadvantaged communities, making sure that the benefits finally really flow to communities that need it the most. And we now have some of the funding to help us do this work. A lot of times you may hear of agencies that just don't have enough funding to do it. And I feel like now we're at this critical moment of let's make sure we use the money the way that it was intended to be used. And so it's great to be able to work with New Jersey on really implementing the funds and the priorities together. So thank you so much for hosting us, PSENG, and also for everyone coming out, because this really is where we need to listen and learn on how we make sure this gets done in the right way. So thank you so much. Candace?
Thank you, Lisa. All right, so instructions for you. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. If you're able, can you please just form a line to my left, your right? There's a microphone stand set up, and we'll just take your question person by person. For those of you online, we are monitoring you, we see you, so please feel free to put your question directly into the chat, and then we'll read it and address it question by question. You can also feel free to raise your hand. So there's a raise your hand, like a hand icon in your Zoom controls at the bottom of your screen. You can press that, we'll see you highlight it, and we will call on you when it is your time to ask your question or say your comment orally. Also, if you have dialed into the meeting, so you're just calling in by phone, you can please dial *9. *9 is how you raise your hand on the phone. And so we'll call on you when it's your turn.
I know.
I know that you learn something new every day, every day.
All right, so this point is really important. We are here to talk about environmental justice in Salem County, right? So we want to limit the topics today about environmental justice in Salem County. So when we say environmental justice, we're meaning overburdened communities as we define it in New Jersey. So just want to run down those communities in New Jersey: Kearney's Point, Penns Grove, Pennsville, Pitts Grove, and Salem. So if you're from those communities, we definitely want to hear from you. If you're not from those communities, we just ask that you yield the floor first to those communities to say and ask their questions, and we'll take questions and comments from those of you in the room and online who may not be from those communities towards the end. And if we run out of time and just don't have the ability to address your comment or question tonight, please see one of my staff from the Office of Environmental Justice. If you're in the room, they're over to my left in the back.
Raise your hands, everybody.
Thank you so much to my staff for making this happen. And you can also email us at environmentaljustice@dep.nj.gov. And when I say we read every email, we really do, and we'll get back to you. Okay, I'll repeat that throughout the night. And so we'll just take our first person.
I'm not the first person. There you go.
How you doing? My name is Leon Daniels, and I happen to own a home in Kearney's Point, New Jersey, and Salem, New Jersey. Okay, the problem, what I'm up here for, is it any grant monies or monies to give to our city of Salem, which we're having problems. Like, I read a couple of articles that the president and the vice president just signed a large bill. Is it any kind of way they're trying to swing our city into going private? And we, myself, I don't think we should go private because you got senior citizens that's on set incomes, okay? Private companies is a little regulations towards it, but it's gonna drive the senior citizens where they're on set incomes and the prices, they can regulate the prices any amount. They could say, okay, after 5 years, they are already, the city done already hammered us with 2 water raises this year already. Okay, it don't take much. It took 12. They had a lawsuit and they got $12 million back for the water plant that they built on Greaves Parkway, which was discrepancies with that. Okay, what I'm saying with, is it any possible way, instead of us going private, can we get monies from either the federal government, from the money, to get our water and sewage together, or build a new water plant and then fix the sewer plant down there? Because the city, like I said, we're a distressed city, we're a majority brown city, and we're getting hit with it real hard. And our tax dollars are going up. We're getting hit with tax dollars. And I would like to see if we could get any money for that. The tax dollars now, we have a problem with billing, of course, that's swinging us into that situation. And if we could get new meters, right now, the last 3 cycles, it's been estimated. And we done had 2 water bill raises twice this year already in this distressed city. So what I'm concerned about is our senior citizens. They're gonna get water hiked out of their homes. And if it go into private hands, those private companies would do this to you. You're late 2 times or you can't pay 2 times, you're gonna get leaned out of your properties. I'm in the best of both worlds. I see it with American Water and Carney's Point. Of course, you get hit twice, you're gone. You're gonna lose your home, okay? And you got the hungry investors that's coming in here to take over the homes, you see. Forget this man done paid 50 years or 60 years worth of, they own their house, but if they can't keep up with the taxes or their water bills going up, they're out too. So now you got a problem with the senior citizens being out in the street. So you're gonna have a homeless problem with that if you're not careful. Okay, the other problem is with the gentleman from the state, from the DEP commissioner. I have a drainage ditch behind my house. And I've been talking to the city about this for 10 years. And I've been getting the runarounds, oh, we gotta find out from DEP where we can put the soils at. Okay, this ditch have not been, since I was there, this ditch has not been dug out since 1996. Okay, now all the sport, you have a 10-foot ditch that runs from Anderson Drive all the way down to Casby Street, and the soils are so high that it's draining, and you can't even enjoy life outside because of all the mosquitoes out there. So zero. And yes, we're a distressed city, but my street pays taxes. And it's falling on deaf ears. Been getting the runarounds for 10 years. And I'm tired of it. And I'm quite sure it's wetlands back there. So you have a say in that. DEP have a say in that. The city, they could lie, but DEP do have a say in it when they go back there and they look at those wetlands. And I'm just sick of it going to, I went to the meeting yesterday. Oh, well, we gotta see where we gotta put the soils at. You did it for my street, you can't do it. But on Greaves Parkway, where you have like majority of the white population, you have Mud Digger Ditch there. That area down there drains into Mud Digger Ditch, So they don't have the problem over there. But over in my area, they have that problem over there, and I'm sick of it, and I'm glad you came here. I don't bite my tongue. I'm a retired man, you see.
Leon, we don't want you to bite your tongue. That's why we came.
Right.
So no one need bite their tongue. We came to listen, and try our best to be helpful. Can I ask you a few questions just
Yes,
to make
sir.
sure I have this right?
Yes, sir.
So let's start with the drainage ditch. I'm gonna take the easiest one first. The drainage ditch. Is that in Carney's Point?
It's in Salem City.
Okay. And you said between Anderson Drive and give me that other road.
Okay, it's drained Casby Street and all the section of the avenues in Salem City. You have a section of town called the avenues. So all the avenues, it drains into that ditch, and then it goes out to the Salem River. Right now, what it is, the soil is it's like you could basically walk across when it's supposed to be a 6-foot ditch in there. And the county advised that they had a plan to dig it out. But guess what? Salem said, okay, well, they giving that to me. I'm not sure. When I go and ask for the information, I can't get it. Oh, well, we got a plan, to dig it out. The county of Salem already had a plan to dig it out. But Salem was stalling on it, saying that, okay, we don't know where to put the soils at. Why don't you? You have a dump out there, for that stuff. Don't bull crap me, okay?
And
I'm a man, the thing is, I'm a disabled vet, 100%. I fought for this country in 3 wars, okay? I didn't come back home to get treated like the Vietnam vets did, okay? I just want it right. You know,
I can completely
I just
understand
want it
that.
right.
I
And
can
I
completely
did-
understand that.
you know.
So basically, what I'm envisioning in my mind is a drainage problem whereby water runoff is not reaching the creek.
Right.
And so therefore, you're experiencing some pooling of water that is creating
It
a
filled the
mosquito
ditch
breeding
up,
ground.
A 10-foot ditch all the way up to the top with soils. All they have to do, and the county said that they will come in there and use their gear, but they don't want to take the soils away.
Okay.
But the city said, hey, look, we just paid for a new dump truck in this distressed city. Why can't they do something with the soil or cut a deal with the county to take it away? I paid $12,000 in my home there. Every home along there, you know, do I have the money for that? I'm retired. $12,000 plus a high electric bill for my pump continuously running. I don't get compensated for that, but guess what? My tax bill go up. My water bill went up twice this year, twice in 1 year. You got to look into it because it's being put on deaf ears here in this town.
So one of the things that we can do is we can have we have a representative that works with the city. We have several through a program that we call our Community Collaborative Initiative to explore some of the solutions that we might be able to be helpful with. It sounds like maybe there's a wetlands permitting concern, maybe. Sounds like maybe there's a concern about where someone can dispose of material when it's dredged, and that's always a concern, but that's a concern that can be answered for. So I think that it's an area where we can be helpful, but we got to do a little homework. And I just see you got a card from one of our Community Collaborative Initiative folks. So it is something that we can look into. I think we're going to hear a bit about this evening about the concerns raised around the potential for private interests in the city water system. So perhaps one of the things that we can do is we can, on that particular issue, for folks that we want to share about it, maybe Lisa and I save some of our feedback until we hear from folks on that issue, so we're not, we have as full a picture before we start offering sort of some thoughts. Does that sound okay?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. And thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Leon, neighbor. Hi, everybody. I'm kind of tall, so can I move this? Thank you. So my name is Janice Roots. I am a resident in Salem City. I've been in Salem since 2009, moving here from Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm from Willingboro, so I'm from New Jersey. Okay, so I'm going to change directions a little bit if I can. My question and my comments are going to be related to the quality of our water. Okay, so years ago, I'm not really sure how many. I'm sorry, I can't quote the year, but it was this says 2019, but I think this issue was going on prior to that. But I have here in my hand a complaint that was filed by the former Attorney General, Graywall. It was the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection versus E.I. DuPont Nemours. And I just want to read a little bit off of this complaint. I'm not going to read a lot. It's 99 pages, just a couple of small paragraphs, because this is going to set up the question that I have.
I do know it well, in
Okay,
case
you do-
that's helpful to you.
Yeah, okay, yes. So, all right, then I can just skip that part then. And I don't have any problem with that. So we all know that from this spill fund lawsuit, what was going on for more than 50 years from DuPont and Solvay, actually. but DuPont is right there in Pennsville, sits right up on the Salem River. So my concern is that out of this lawsuit that happened a few years ago, it feels like and sounds like DuPont, with the blessing of DEP, got a little slap on the hand. And we are, again, a marginalized community, and we're surrounded by other communities, but there are marginalized communities that sit right here on this Salem River. So when I started reading about the outcome of this lawsuit, I was really surprised to find out that all DuPont had to do to walk away is pay $300,000 and build a boat ramp on Route 540. And I'm not raised here in Salem, so I wasn't really familiar with the area, but I remember this construction that was going on 540. I wasn't sure what it was until after.
Jen, I'm sorry, Janice, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
That's
I
okay.
think now I'm a little confused. So you mentioned a complaint from 2019 that I said that I'm familiar with it because I helped to write it.
Oh, okay.
To hold DuPont and others accountable for the degree of pollution, particularly from PFAS forever chemicals that have been spread here in Salem and throughout our state. I'm not, that complaint is still pending. There is ongoing litigation. That litigation has been going on for several years, and it is not resolved. You can be assured I'm gonna hold them accountable.
Well, I hope
but it's
not.
not resolved. So the part that confused me is when you said that something was resolved for $300,000.
Well, I can send you the paperwork.
Please,
And maybe,
please do.
And maybe you can, I mean, I'll stand corrected if need be.
Or
but-
maybe
but
a
that-
company like that could have many different lawsuits against it.
Yes.
So perhaps there was another lawsuit.
Right.
And I'm happy to get to the bottom of it.
Okay.
If there are materials you wanted to send so we could figure out and get you the right answer. I just know that 2019 complaint is the one that is still being litigated, and we're fighting them hard.
Okay, so, I mean, at the end of the day, when I drive back and forth to go on the bridge or to go over into Burlington County, I drive by this boat ramp every day with this nice, pretty sign that says, built by DuPont. And the problem is that we continue to get notices of our waters being, our water being contaminated above that acceptable level, whatever you call the MCL, whatever that thing is called. You know what I'm talking
I
about,
do.
right? Okay. And we just got another one. I got mine, I think, 2 days ago. And I hear city officials making statements about, oh, don't worry about it. Oh, we only had one bad or unacceptable PFAS test. And it's just not true. And our community has a median income of $24,000, I think $841. Like, we're a really poor community. And for this company to have done what they've done over a period of time and not provide us any resources in the interim, because I want to tell you, we have people who literally cannot afford to drink water. That's not me, but it's people who live around me. I mean, to buy water, not drink water, excuse me. You know what I meant. You understand?
I do.
And how do we serve these people and keep them safe until such time as we can get a resolution, whether it be a filtering system or whatever it is? Like, we're still exposed to this water. And honestly, even if we can buy water, you still gotta wash your dishes in it. I'm still bathing in it. I got a little cut on my feet. I still have pores. I have a little cut on, you understand? I'm still exposing myself to these chemicals while these people have great lives and are doing nothing to help my community. And we live of course, closest, Carneys Point, Pennsville, Penns Grove, Salem, we live right on the river. So we are the ones that have the most exposure. I don't know what the answer is, but I'd like to know if you could speak on it at all, and to also, I guess I'd like to know if there are any measures or means that could help people in this marginalized community who don't have the resources to find other means, kind of like maybe what was done in Newark. I know they had a lead problem, I think, and there were cases of water brought in. I have literally gone around recently and bought water for people that I knew that couldn't afford it and didn't want to ask. You understand?
I do.
Okay,
And I
that's my question.
can speak to it a bit. So a couple of observations. Number one, some gratitude for you sharing what you have, and I gather speaking on behalf of a lot of different folks. I heard some mm-hms, right? So New Jersey has taken a lot of strides, believe it or not, in fighting the scourge of these kinds of chemicals. We started a few years back by putting in place those MCLs before any state in the entire country even bothered, because we knew we had some hot spots where there was pretty high contamination, in the southwestern part of the state in particular. And so the reason that you now see those notices when there is an excursion of a standard, whether that excursion is small or whether that excursion is really high, because we put in place standards that number one, make the water systems tell you what's going on, and then number two, when there is a violation that forces the water systems to put in the kind of treatment that's going to protect you. We don't want folks to have to go buy and bottled water. I'll tell you something, it ain't always safer.
That's true.
Right? It ain't always safer.
I agree.
We assume that because we bought it, it comes
Yeah.
safer, but that's not always true. The water quality standards in the state of New Jersey are among the best in the world, because we don't want folks to have to take on that expense. You should have confidence that when you turn on the tap, the water is safe and clean for you and your families.
Yeah.
And if you own a business, for your customers. So we've taken that step. And then because these chemicals, they take a lot of time and a lot of money to get out of the water, we understood that was going to work a significant burden on water systems, whether those water systems are publicly owned, which are the majority of systems in the state of New Jersey, or if they're privately owned. We don't want those systems to have to be burdened by the costs, which inevitably just get passed down to all of us. So we said, the folks who've got to clean up, the folks who made this mess, right, they've got to clean it up, and that's why we brought these lawsuits. Right? And we've been working to hold those folks accountable through the courts, and in the meantime, to help our water systems by taking all that money that Lisa talked about, that the federal government now has available because of our federal representatives in Congress. That money comes into the state government by and large, and then we've got to help our local communities access it so that they can make those upgrades that are needed. Not free, because this stuff is expensive, but cheaper. We can help you do it for cheaper. And so those are a number of things that we have on the table to offer to any community. And we're helping private well owners too, because not everybody is on city water, right, in all parts of New Jersey. And when there is a test of your water in New Jersey, we're only forced to do private well tests if we're going to sell our house, right? But it's something that everybody really should do every once in a while to see what's going on. If you were to find out that your well had contaminants in it, we would help you. We would help you get the treatment on that private well too. All of this takes time, but we are committed to it. We're committed to making sure these folks don't leave us all cleaning up their mess. It's not okay.
Can I just say how much I appreciate your willingness to kind of take responsibility, be accountable, and communicate with us the truth, because I'm gonna be honest with you, we don't get this on a regular basis. Okay, it almost feels like we're not even a part of the state. And when we talk to our local officials, you ever see a show that's called Lie to Me? I'm telling you this.
I've not watched it, but I
All
have
right,
heard
you've
of
heard
it.
of it. But I'm telling you, that's what it feels like. And, you know, all we want to know, and we know that nobody in this room, nobody in the state, nobody in our local government caused this problem. But we have to acknowledge that there is a problem in order to fix the problem. And that is what we're not getting. And I don't know if we're not getting that because you guys aren't communicating with our local government, or if they're just in such a state of denial that they don't even realize it. But we have been continuously told it's not a problem in Salem. And I know that's not true. I have called DEP. I go on the Water Watch website. I can see the numbers myself. I don't even have to call anybody and ask. But when I'm hearing in one ear, oh, we only got one bad PFNA test, and that happened back in 2019. And I know that's not the truth, and we have no recourse. We have nobody to talk to, but you're here now. So I really appreciate your frankness and your effort to at least give us a voice. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate this, but I appreciate your gratitude, but I didn't give you your voice. Thank you for using it.
But what I'm saying is you're here and allowing our voices to be heard, because I know that you don't have to do this.
Well, that's what government should do. Thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you.
Jim, I see that your hand is raised online. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. My name is Jim Grant. My wife and I own and operate a venue that's about 1.5 miles south of Salem. It's in Elsinboro Township, which borders on Salem City. What I want to talk about briefly is sharing equally green space, because where we're at, we're on the bank of the Delaware River, and there was a beach created here in 2014. Yvonne? The cat wanted to join the conference. There was a beach created here in 2014, 2015 with federal and state money. And I think it created a wonderful outdoor recreational opportunity. And my concern is that it is not shared equally, particularly with the underserved residents of Salem. I'm proud to say that I finished law school last year. So I'm going to talk and present this in law school lingo, which is IRAC, issue, the rule, analysis, and conclusion. My issue is—
Oh my God, I love that. I'm a lawyer, and I'm just like, oh, please speak IRAC to me, Jim.
we're gonna do that. We're gonna do the IRAC moves here. Yeah, it kind of, yeah, okay. So the issue is that the opportunity that is presented here for outdoor recreation is not shared equally. And so you really have two issues. One is the township in breach of contract that they signed with the state DEP and with the federal government Army Corps of Engineers? And the other one, of course, is about environmental justice. And to paraphrase the info from your site, that is that are we ensuring that all residents, regardless of race, ethnicity, color, national origin, or income, are able to recreate in a healthy environment and to have equal access to green space? The analysis shows that, well, the facts, the basis analysis, it was in the winter of 2014, 2015, the Army Corps of Engineers pumped 365,000 cubic yards of sand from the bottom of the Delaware River channel, and it restored Oakwood Beach, is what is commonly called here. It's a 1.94 miles, almost 2 miles long by 100 feet wide, sandy, pristine beach in a beautiful setting in South Jersey, and we have wonderful sunsets. But the reality is what is going on. Access to the beach is obviously restricted. There's a lack of parking spaces. No parking signs are placed in close proximity of mandated access paths, which there are 4 according to the Army Corps of Engineer and the DEP contract. The signs are both municipality signs and private vigilante signs. Encroachment on a county road is tolerated tacitly, such that a road that should have a 50-foot wide right-of-way is reduced to less than 25 feet, making it virtually impossible to park along a county road, which should be allowed. There are several public streets that are incorrectly posted as private lanes, and the access paths to the beach are at these dead ends. There are no public toilets except for the one that we actually pay for on our property. There are no trash cans. And last but not least, a municipal ordinance cuts short the hours the beach is open to the public. And I was going to say that on the west coast of New Jersey, I say that our sunsets are famous. However, you don't want to take a front row seat in the sand with your loved one to watch nature show. A vigilant beach resident may report your illegal presence to the police because 10 months of the year it's illegal to sit on the beach and watch the sunset. To grasp the nature of the situation, I want to reference a police incident report from June 15th of 2019. The beach closed at 8 p.m. on that day. The sunset at 8:31. At 8:04, police dispatch received a call from a beach resident that claimed that there were people illegally on the beach. 8:23, the local police, which was from Lower Eloise Creek under contract with our township, responded to the call, and the report read, and I quote, "Observed 2 5-year-old girls given warnings," end of report. And at 8:31 was the sunset. So the conclusion is, I realize that New Jersey residents expect a lot of you and NJDEP, and often the demands that your actions are kind of short of miracles. If this issue that I presented was just limited to breach of contract, I wouldn't ask for help. I wouldn't bother you. But Elsinboro Township and Salem are neighbors. The right to enjoy a sunset on a public beach is not limited to where you live, not to an exclusive group who has the fortunate situation to own property on the beach. The municipal's conduct is more than a breach of contract. But what's the solution? I think we need some help. I think the township is missing an opportunity to add value to local real estate and equity. I don't think, we need to go the legal dance on this situation. I think we just need to get the share stakeholders together and talk about, what if we made some improvements? What if you looked at this from a different angle and made parking possible, let people have access to the beach, then your property values would go up. It would be, you'd have to have less police calls. And for goodness sake, wouldn't this be a better world if people could sit on the beach and watch the sunset?
It sure would be, Jim. Jim, would I be correct in assuming that since you did an IRAC analysis, you might have done it in writing in order to prepare to share that with me this evening?
Yes, I can email you.
Would you mind sharing that with the email address that Candace would restate?
Yes.
That she mentioned earlier, environmental justice at?
environmentaljustice@dep.nj.gov.
I
And my
noted
team will
it,
put
yeah.
it in the chat. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Terrific, and I'd be happy for you to share that with us. And I really appreciate your recitation. But the truth is that every resident of the state of New Jersey owns the beach in the state of New Jersey under the state's public trust doctrine. And were that historic doctrine not enough, in 2019, our legislature passed and our governor signed the public access law. So if you send that recitation to us, our public access team can follow up with you and any of those who may need our guidance with respect to how to comply with public access law and to ensure that the people of our state enjoy their beach.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll do what I can then to help.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. We'll take the next person. Yeah, go for it.
Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. A quick comment on Jim, by the way. Jim is selling himself short here. What he has done for the community in regards to public access cannot be understated. The real estate that he has personally donated, not sold, donated to the state of New Jersey for public access exceeds $1 million. I mean, this gentleman here, to protect the rights of the people, it cannot be overstated. So Jim is the man, and I want to make sure that that is on the record.
Thank you, Jim.
And yeah, no. Totally do some 180, totally different than what everything here. But again, thank you. So I wanted to bring up some stuff that stinks a little bit more than that, and that's septic systems. Oh yeah, my name is Matt Cassidy, from Salem County, born and raised, been here nearly 3 decades. So I also own some local businesses that are in the food business, which is why I'm going to get to this in a second here. So septic systems we know are very common in Salem County, and they're prohibitively expensive. Now, not only are they prohibitively expensive for residents, they are exceptionally, I mean, beyond reason for commercial food grade businesses. So I believe the New Jersey EDA did some work recently on food deserts, and they identified all the food deserts in the state. And they mentioned this community being one of them, right? Penns Grove, Carneys Point. They actually forgot Elsonboro doesn't have any food too. So let's expand the borders there too, right? Let's talk about in Carneys Point, Penns Grove. Olman's Township doesn't have any food. Let's keep on expanding the borders. The majority of the county, and this is a fact, you can look this up, does not have food. It just doesn't. And so it all qualifies as a food desert based on the New Jersey EDA's guidelines. And yet they're not getting the resources or anything. So how does the DEP come in? Well, as someone who owns real estate, owns food businesses, and who wants to put food businesses in these areas that are served by septic systems, I discovered the DEP. Now, the DEP, when doing a septic process, requires people to go through approval, not only through the health department, but through a process called the TWA, Treatment Works Approval, right? It is about a calculation and some other determinations, right? So they calculate how much gallons per day are going to go through the process, right? And they're also going to say, does it need a grease trap and things associated to this, right? Well, most dreams die there. If you look at, this is data for you, right? Since 2010, when the commercial food grade septic rules changed, more businesses that are food related have closed in these septic service areas.
Can I ask a question?
Sure,
just
please.
about what you mean, Matt, by food businesses. Do you mean restaurants?
Restaurants, grocery stores, bodegas, anything that requires in the TWA some sort of the food-based applications, right? So grease traps.
Meaning that there's going to be food preparation.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, got it.
And so we have seen more food-based businesses closed than open by a long shot. I mean, the number is 3 to 1, 4 to 1. It's insane, right? And there are more businesses that are on the way out. And that is because those businesses that are still standing are grandfathered in the previous rules. But an example is in Olman's Township, the town where I reside from. The owner of the property, there was one store in town, called the Country Store. It basically was a pizza shop, had some light groceries and things like that. The owner passed away from a heart attack unexpectedly. And since then, he doesn't have the square footage of the lot to comply with the new things he would need to put into the septic. Now, I believe it's an ATU. is the new type of system that would try to reduce the square footage. That's alternative treatment unit. I'm not a septic installer, so bear with me, but that system there, still, it's not, it's still too big for that lot. And so basically, the only entity that had serviced food in the town is now shuttered. There are more examples of this. I mean, it goes on and on. Over in Elsonboro, probably you can walk to it. You have Seagraves, right? Seagraves Sub Shop, right? They're going to be next, right? The owners are in their late 70s.
Say it again, C.
Seagraves,
Like
SEA.
SEA,
Yeah. Great subs, but they're going to be next because they're going to have the same problem.
And so Matt, can you summarize for me what the what are the you mentioned a change in 2010.
Yes.
What are the changes that happened in 2010 that present the concern? I don't mean just about cost.
Sure.
Let me clarify. I don't mean just about cost. I understand that what you're saying is the systems are more, the newer types of systems are more expensive. The question that I'm asking is, I guess, more technical, and it's okay if you don't know, because, I mean, I'm asking you because I don't know.
Sure.
Is it a change from treating these food preparation establishments like you would a residential septic and treating them as requiring a higher degree of protection for water quality?
No.
Okay.
Now, they did add an inspection requirement, so that is one requirement that is unlike residential. But the main difference is the calculation. It all came about because of Wawa. So Wawa was building septics that were too small. So, you know, it would process maybe 4,000, 5,000 gallons per day, right? But they were operating on a standard commercial septic, right? And so the calculation got more conservative. An example, I have a bakery, and I have 2 locations. I wanted to add a 3rd location in Olmans Township. And when I did the calculation, now I know what my water and it's like 100 gallons per day. When the DP came back, 600. That's a lot different. Now, water, you can add a little bit of water.
Yeah, I mean, question that whether there's a uniform treatment that is lumping businesses that don't have extremely high usage of water with businesses that might, for example, a Wawa. The reason for Wawa is necessarily using the facilities and therefore taxing that septic. And if your septic isn't bad enough, isn't good enough, isn't big enough, it's going to create a situation where you're effectively poisoning your groundwater underneath. And it sounds like maybe there's more than two, there should be more than 2 options or ways of calculating it. Not everything is a Wawa.
Exactly. Discretion, right, is the first part. And the other thing is how to consider the rural communities. Is it going to be supporting it financially, right? Because it becomes, in a way, it's environmental justice in the fact that it's food, right? People need to eat. So, and then in other aspects, it's, you know, how do we maintain that we have a safe drinking water, that we have safe groundwater discharge and everything. We want to respect the regulations. I'm not asking to carve up the regulations, right? I'm asking you to take a look, think of the nuance, think of, is it financial support to these rural communities to help them, build these sort of things, right? Or is it going to be, if it's a rural business that's in a township of less than 10,000 people, which is basically every township in this county, right? Are they going to see the throughput of the Wawa? Probably not, right? Yeah. So it's things like that. We just need further consideration. Now, I spoke to Vincent Caligari, I believe he's Caliguire, yeah. So
Vince is right here.
Vince, brother, how you doing, man? By the way, fellow Army veteran right here. So, yep. So Vince and I, we actually did a walk through some communities, right? So I'm not just coming to you, trying to go out there. And Vince and I, we had a lot of great discussions. In fact, Vince followed up with me a week ago. It was maybe 4 months afterwards, right? And so there's progress, but the problem is we don't necessarily know the 100% solution, right? So we need to put more minds to it and everything like that. We need to see how are we going to support it. I guess my parting shot here is that when it comes to this area, we are in a rock and a hard place because we feel like the regulations haven't been enough to protect us, like the previous speaker mentioned. And yet, in some instances, due to the prevalence of wetlands and the prevalence of all sorts of other environmental things, they've been too onerous on us. It is important that you're here, but we need balance. We need a middle path. And I look to you and I look to the experts in this room to find how can we balance the needs of a community, growth, and safety.
I love that question. It is that I think Lisa would probably agree. It is a question that characterizes our entire careers. And I'm going to ask Lisa for her thoughts in a second. But one of the things I wanted to throw another option on the list that you just presented, which was good, and I thank you. Which is, we're often confronted with this. I mean the collective, we, all of us in our modern society, we're confronted with this sort of story of two choices, right? And there's only ever two, right? We can better protect our environment, or we can promote economic development, and nary the two shall meet, right? There's a third way. And the lane in the third way is broader. We better support our communities in protecting their environment so that they can be economically successful. So rather than look at, and although we should, additionally, so in addition to looking at whether the regulations as applied to like smaller businesses are not entirely right for the circumstance, we should look at that, but we should also be mindful of the need to really protect the water quality. And if what we're talking about is a situation where businesses need greater support in order to protect that water quality, then we, the government, need to explore programs to provide that support, right? We shouldn't be saddling communities with making that false choice to begin with, right? And so that is something I think that we can all look at. I don't know, Lisa, if you have other thoughts about that.
Yeah, I was going to say that I appreciate, all of the comments, because one of the things that we found, especially with this influx of funding for water infrastructure, was that there was a gravitation to urban areas. And so wastewater treatment plants or drinking water systems. And slowly it started coming out. And as we go around, septic tanks, how are we dealing with that? Cisterns that people use for drinking water, and what the issues are in rural communities. So I know that we have, and I can talk about some of the work that the federal government is doing, but just to be clear, a lot of the water infrastructure, drinking water funding, and also emerging contaminants like for PFAS is flowing through the state of New Jersey. And like the commissioner said, we're trying to figure out how to really, the federal government support those projects. And one of the areas that we really need to work on is rural communities. How do we, because it is a different question like you're raising, and it is a different solution, one. The other is we're coupling some of that support with technical assistance. And I'm trying to think if it's technical assistance for commercial, or for, if there's a homeowners versus commercial, or states and municipalities. I know for sure it is for municipalities, but maybe that's something that we can get back to you on, because it is a huge problem. And how are we dealing with it? And what are the funding, like you're saying, what's the funding available to be able to come up to those standards that are being implemented when you're not the big commercial or the big urban community? So I appreciate it.
And the
Yeah.
USDA, they have a lot
They
of rural
have,
development offices and stuff like that. They have a lot of funding, but
Yeah.
never doesn't cover this, right? But there are things that people are thinking about us, but they just don't know how to best meet our needs.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, you get bureaucrats from Trenton or DC who think they understand,
Yeah.
but everyone out here knows they live it
Yeah.
every single day. And so that's where the frustration comes from.
Yeah.
Mr. Commissioner, if you want to.
No, and I appreciate that.
yeah.
That's why I'm saying
Yeah.
it was clear that we were hearing very loudly from urban areas
Yeah.
and we had to come to places like this. So I appreciate it because we do need to find more solutions and how we get that funding out to help support
Thank you.
your types of businesses and
Absolutely.
certainly homeowners also.
And sort of one of the things that this brings to mind, whether it's the private wells or the septic tanks, is, you know, even government programs like the bipartisan infrastructure law that have the best of intentions, right? Improve the water quality and the drinking water in our communities. They often take the same route as prior government programs, and meaning that for this money, a lot of it flows through the state to go to water systems, right? To help make improvements. But there are gaps, right? Gaps for the private homeowner with the well, gaps for folks that need septic investment. And so what we as policymakers need to take to heart is how do we is a real exploration as to how do we fill those gaps, right? Not just look past them because we're trying to broadly do good, but specifically. And then we also have to look to other partners. You mentioned the EDA. The EDA is an incredible partner to the Department of Environmental Protection. So it's an issue that I can discuss with the head of that agency as well, especially as it relates to the food desert issue. So encouraging government to have greater connectivity with itself is something that you are doing, and you may not realize it, and it's awesome. And I thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your
so
time.
much.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna one closing comment here, just so you know firsthand. The average, I guess, house price in Salem, I believe, is around $120,000 right now. The septic that I was quoted for the one bakery, $110,000.
Mm.
That's a load of crap. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Who's next? Okay. Go for it.
Oh, we've got
Hi, good evening. Thank you for coming here. I'm gonna leave all the major issues to everybody else because I'm sure you guys know that on everybody's mind is water and green spaces. And I kind of just wanted to seek out your expertise and ask you two questions, if I may. The first is, and I'm probably very naive, but to me, I don't think there's another state that really hit the ground running like New Jersey did in doing these environmental justice tours, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. So because you mentioned you did one last year as well, what would you say was the region that was in most need, right? Which one was most racially, environmentally inequitable?
There's not a single answer to that question, because I think the needs of our communities are so deep, and they're different. No one being, you know, particularly greater in need or more important a public health, safety, or environmental issue than another. There are a lot of commonalities that you wouldn't necessarily think of, right? A lot of commonalities I'm hearing today that are not, I don't know, Candace, all too different than what we heard in Hackensack or out in, right, a dense urban community, or in Perth Amboy, or out in Phillipsburg, which is rural, but of a different rural character than here. But we do hear a lot of common themes, water quality being chief among them, folks being concerned about the quality of their water and wanting to ensure that their drinking water is safe and that their waterways are clean. By and large, one of the greatest issues, I think far more than any other that we hear of in communities that are rural character, of suburban or in dense urban communities, are flood risks, not unlike what Leon was saying about waterways being silted, and there being more rainfall than there was before, and creating both flood hazards and mosquito breeding grounds. Like, these are very common issues. And so on the one hand, you're not alone. And on the other hand, we have got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Oh, well, we've been doing some of these in New York, in Puerto Rico. And I would say exactly, I don't think the issues are so different, but there are similarities. One is that we really need to do a better job at listening and matching the concerns with our solutions. And so it's great to be out. And then the other is that, I mean, what I find is that everyone wants to improve their community, which I find really lovely, that it's about improving our community, not necessarily leaving or moving away. And so, as the commissioner said, we have a lot of work to do, but I do think there's heightened issues around rural communities, language access issues in communities. I mean, Puerto Rico is one, but even in New Jersey and New York, so language access issues. So there are commonalities, but a lot of work to do. So we appreciate you coming out and making sure that we know what our tasks are into the future.
Thank you so much. That's actually a really great segue to my follow-up question. How communities can kind of help you solve the issues, because everybody has, on one hand, both limited and unlimited resources. And I'm gonna reference a meeting that happened in Salem City a few months ago, where obviously one of the major issues is what's happening with the water. And there was an amazing gentleman who stood up, and I am awful, I can't remember his name. He introduced himself. He said, "Hey, I'm an architect. I'm an engineer. I've been doing this for 2 decades. Here's a solution that can help you fix the water quality. And it's inexpensive and it's effective. And here are the studies." And he was kind of just said, "Okay, well, that's nice, but we're not going to take you under advisement." And I feel like people who live in communities, whether it's this one, a different part of a New Jersey, different part of a state, it's the people that live there that would come up with creative solutions. What's the strategy to implement it, right? To kind of, I apologize, give a little bit of a backstory. We bought a house in Salem. Unfortunately, I'm not privileged enough that I grew up here, but I love the city. I think it's one of the most beautiful places I visited. And across the street from us has been an abandoned building that we have asked the city to buy for several years at this point. Their excuse is that the EPA has to come in and clean up an oil spill that may or may not have happened there because it was a mechanic shop. Our solution was, hey, we'll pay for it. You guys can pick the company. We'll clean up the spill just so that this building doesn't come into further disarray and further damage isn't done. They're kind of giving us the runaway. And I imagine that's not the only community that happens quite often, where the citizens want to be like, hey, we'll come in, we'll be the boots in the ground, we'll be the resources. You just have to give us the okay. How can we get more involved? How can we help you help us, and vice versa?
Yeah,
Wait,
this is a great question.
Yeah, so can you give us information on that building so we can, okay, thanks. So we can follow up. So one of the things I was going to say is we work with the state on follow-up and action items. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Lisa and I were just together at an old abandoned facility in Trenton, where we were able to come up with some state dollars, and the federal government was able to come up with federal dollars in order to help clean up an old contaminated site, so that it could be put back to productive use for the community. And one of the major advocates wasn't just the local government, but a neighborhood association that had organized around improving the conditions in their community. And they, this organized group of engaged residents, they put it on the radar of the city. They put it on the radar of the state and the federal government, and their advocacy matters, right? Because folks' voices matter. And sure, there isn't endless money in local, state, or the federal government for that matter. But every little bit counts. And there are probably programs and opportunities to make those types of improvements that you may not even be aware of. And part of the work that everyone here can do in holding all of us government people accountable to our own values is to stay attuned to what offers are there, right? Like my team at the Department of Environmental Protection, Lisa's team at EPA, we're sharing information and grant opportunities so often that many in local government, they can't even keep up with us, right? There's not enough staff, there's not enough capacity to even take advantage of all we have to offer. And that's where an engaged group of residents can make a real difference, and take on, that indifferent. Let's watch DEP. Let's watch when they're coming out with Green Acres grants so that we can improve access to open space. Let's watch what they're doing to put out opportunities to get cleanup funding for that abandoned site. Watching what we're doing and taking advantage of those opportunities can be really, really impactful. Otherwise, those resources, they will often go to the places they've always gone, right? They're available to you too. And part of our doing this is to make sure you know that, and hopefully that you continue to engage with us as we continue to engage with you.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody's inspired by you today and can come together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll mention, can I mention something?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah. I'll mention something quickly because along those lines, one of the things that we also heard from communities is sometimes they just don't even have the capacity to assemble or to have that opportunity. And so EPA has a few other opportunities, and we'll make sure to share the information, is we call it Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers, and they're about to get started or kick off, launch in the next month. And so that's going to be a real opportunity for, let's say something like you mentioned, there may be an abandoned building. How do we find out? And what type of funding is available, either through an EJ grant, a Department of Energy grant, and other federal funding from EPA, and then of course working with our states trying to leverage that. But we have heard clearly that it can, as the commissioner said, we come in and we say, okay, we have all this money, you guys figure it out. And communities are saying, we can't figure it out. We need help even figuring it out so that we can get those dollars into our community. And so we're putting the TIC-TAC here for New York and New Jersey is going to have $10 million and be open to communities, to small and low income municipalities, just to be able to even get the information of how do we start out. Anyway, so I also wanted to just mention that because that's one way that hopefully we can meet some of the communities. And I know New Jersey's obviously helping us with all that.
Can I add just one point on that? What effectively you'll see come out of EPA in the weeks in the months ahead is when Lisa said they're going to make this announcement. There will be a place that communities in need can call, a person to reach out to, and a group of people whose whole job it is to help you figure out your problem and then access funding to solve your problem. That's what this TIC-TAC more or less is meant to be.
That's the acronym TIC-TAC.
But if that's something that when that becomes available, if folks who have signed up for this engagement session, we can then share that with all of you. And Lisa and her colleagues are doing, they're not going to sing their own praises, so I will. One of the things that they're doing is because these financial resources from these new these new pieces of legislation that Lisa mentioned, the bill, the IRA, these things that President Biden and Vice President Harris put so much heart and effort into, that traditionally these funds would go directly to local government, right? But a lot of this funding is programmed to go directly to community-based organizations, right? And so that is really, really important. And so as these announcements come out in the next couple of months, it's really something to be attuned to. I can't overstate that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Just two more points to add on before you go, Janice. I wanted to say, the woman who just spoke, if you can leave your information with the team and maybe the location that you're talking about with the oil spill, we'll follow up and look into it. And just a point about sharing information and making sure that people are up to date with all of the grant opportunities that are coming out. My office puts out an every other week environmental justice newsletter. So we're sharing all of those opportunities. It's probably the best way, especially in meantime, before the TIC-TACs get launched, for you to keep attuned to it.
Yeah.
So see my team if you want to get signed up for the newsletter.
Thank you.
Janice.
Hi again. So you really answered my question already. It was a question about process and how good is this money that is being made available if nobody knows how to access it.
Mhm.
So thank you for answering that question. And I guess the other part of that is, you know, on a local level, it's it's kind of difficult to hold your local officials accountable to just that, the process, because oftentimes what comes back is we can't, we don't, we don't know. And you know, I'm just thinking, I just have an idea. Maybe if there were some ability to have community advocates in touch with the environmental justice director, so that you can help us hold our officials accountable, because it can't be that everybody doesn't understand the process, because that's how we get left out of the picture. But that was my question, what the two of you said.
Yeah.
So that was my question. And then Leon beckoned me over. I saw his finger up before and I knew exactly what he was going to ask me. And he beckoned me over. So I'll just go ahead and ask the question for him. And what he wanted to know was that, getting back to the PFAS issue, if there was any funding or any kind of pathway for people who have been affected by contaminated water, kind of like a dark waters type of thing. If there was a pathway for people to get tested, and I think what Leon specifically said is, you know, is there a way that you can go to the health department? And I know why he's asking that, because he went and got tested at Quest, and he had, can I say that? And he had, you know, unusually high levels, and I got tested actually, and I mean, when your doctor calls you and says, I need you to stop drinking water, there's really nothing that you can do when PFAS gets in your system. You just have to, you know, let it chelate out at some point. So you really have to kind of make sure you're drinking filtered water, have a charcoal filter at home if you can. A lot of people cannot. So I guess his question is, are there any means to help people who have, and the only reason that I'm asking you this question and that he's asking you is that, at least in my case, I just had these unexplained illnesses of a vibrant, bright, beautiful person going to work every day, and this sudden onset of an illness that nobody can explain, an illness that actually took me to the NIH, which eventually saved my life. And initially, the doctors at the NIH thought, well, maybe there's a genetic component to what's going on with you, right? So I was tested genetically over and over and over and over and over again over a period of 3 years, and there is no genetic connection. But when you have problems like in what I see in our community, clusters of cancer, not just one or two people, clusters of cancer, a complete breakdown of the endocrine system. And we know C8 affects your endocrine system. You understand what I mean?
I do.
So I don't know if there's a pathway. I mean, like I said, there's really nothing that you can do once it gets in your system, but it's at least nice to know. Thank you.
Any type of funding, where these people only made $27,000. Anything going with the state health department, maybe possibly giving free health, because it costs me like $750 just to get that test. And I was over at the VA hospital. I had to read the test over at the Veterans Hospital elsewhere. And I was with the nurse practitioner, and she sent the results. She sent the results to my doctor over there at the VA, and she said, I have to talk to you immediately. She said, your PFAS, the PFAS is in your system. The metals are in your system are so high, it was concerning to them. So what I'm saying is that any type of way you get the health department involved and give a clinic or Quest a certain amount of money to help these underprivileged people in our town, because they don't have the money like I do. I have the money to go and get the test. But a lot of these people, you know, they drinking this water from the faucet, they feeding it to their babies.
Yeah.
You know, they can't get it. They can't even afford it.
I understand. Yeah,
they're
I do
struggling.
understand what you're raising, and it's a really important point. So I have a couple of observations, and some of them may sound a little scary. Just bear with me. So PFAS, there are thousands of different types of PFAS chemicals, and there are a couple of really salient ones in New Jersey that we are actively regulating, and more on the horizon to be regulated by state and federal governments. There are a lot of different sources of potential exposure to PFAS chemicals. It is incredibly likely that every one of us in this room, including those who do not live in Salem County or close to a former DuPont facility, that it is very likely that we all have PFAS in our blood serum, because PFAS has over time been in so many different products, right? Scotch Guard, for example. If your grandmother was anything like mine, she's spraying that stuff all over the place, even all over you, right? Because we don't want those stains, right? Turns out that sometimes the products that we think are miracles, you know, the eggs don't stick to the pan, the stains don't stay on the couch, turn out to be really bad for us, right? And so this stuff is in most of our bloodstream. And what we're all working on now, Lisa and her team at EPA and me and the team at DEP, is getting a handle on one of the biggest sources of PFAS exposure, which is if the PFAS is in your water, right? It's not the only place that it could be. And so one of the points of consideration, you know, for anybody is to explore that type of testing. I'm not aware of a program that exists that sets up what you're sort of referring to. Sometimes we call in our space medical monitoring programs.
Right.
Oftentimes, those types of programs are the result of litigation and lawsuits, right? Lots of residents get together and they may sue a company that has caused contamination, and then those types of vehicles like medical monitoring funds arise. That's not exactly the same kind of work that we do. What we're doing is trying to make sure that this stuff doesn't continue circulating in the environment and in water. But there are any number of resources that we can help you gain access to explore what are like personal injury or medical monitoring issues. But that's not exactly something that we do on the government side, if that makes sense.
Yeah, all I was just saying, like maybe like get the health department, like the away info for it, get it. But you have a large number that can afford that $700 some odd dollars. They're out here trying to survive.
Yep.
To take care of their kids, get groceries on the table, and all of that. They can't do it. And like Janice was saying, there's a large cancer rate in this town and in the community. That's Elsonboro, Point, all the way from Pedricktown all the way down to Elsonboro, Quinton Township, Alloway Township. This stuff done floated into our stream of water. But what I'm saying, if you know, you have a lot of pull, Commissioner, and Miss Garcia, Miss Perry, maybe you could find some type of money to get the underprivileged people here that test, because it's very important. I know what you were saying, you can't do it, everybody have it, but the doctor's alarm was set off when it's above that rate. You know it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah, there are, you know, somewhat along the lines of what you're saying, there are a couple of studies that are underway that are often sort of the work of a combination of government and academic organizations. So for example, Rutgers, there are folks at Rutgers that are doing blood studies now. There's one underway in Paulsboro. And so one of the questions that we can ask to those partners is the ability to expand those types of endeavors to other areas of the state. You know, clearly, health professionals want to gather an understanding of where there is prevalence and what the exposure circumstances have been, and where folks sit, how much of a load is in folks' blood serum is an important question that informs regulatory and government action.
We'll look into-
Do we have any last questions online? No, okay. Any last questions in the room? Yes, please.
And I promised that I would offer some reflections on the water issues, and I will do that.
How are you? Thank you so much for being here today. I'm going to pivot a little bit. My name, by the way, is Sunil Chalara. I drove down here from Jersey City, 2-hour trip, because I wanted to certainly take this opportunity to ask this question in person. Like I said, I'm going to pivot for a minute and talk about lead paint. I'm a licensed lead inspector, risk assessor, licensed by the EPA, licensed by the DCA rather.
DCA.
DCA.
Okay.
Correct. The problem that I'm having is I am trying to help communities. And when I speak to townships, especially Camden County, Salem County, no one have an answer how I could help. I'm licensed by the state, and I've called the state in New York as well. I'm getting zero answers from the EPA, from the DCA. What I'm getting from many townships are the EPA just dropped this on us. We got to handle it. I don't want to do it. I don't care. This is what I'm getting from many townships in New Jersey.
Are you, yeah.
I think Lisa, go ahead, Lisa. I think you and I probably have the same question.
Are you talking about the lead paint renovation, repair, certifications,
The lead paint inspections,
inspections?
correct.
Yeah. And so your question is, you want to know where we're inspecting, or you want to be the inspector?
I am licensed to inspect these type properties, these
Okay.
homes, where there's a tenant turnover.
Yeah.
The property must be inspected
Yeah.
as per the state's law.
Yeah.
The problem I'm having is when I speak to municipalities, not no one, the majority just aren't doing anything. There's absolutely no communication.
Yeah, so I think, well, we can talk a little bit offline, but one of the things that we're doing is it has been delegated. So the law and the rule is still there. And so the cities, and like you said, everyone should do that inspection. We're actually we can get this information to you, but we're hosting a conference on this issue in Newark, I think next week, on the fact that these requirements are still there and the inspection should be going on. I heard that the issue was the lack of certified inspectors and how they move forward. So I think it's a matter of compliance and enforcement, but I think we can probably take this offline and figure out how we raise awareness to the fact that you still need to inspect and the laws and the regulations are still there. And that's why we need the inspectors,
Well,
right? Because we want to get rid of, I mean, we want to know where lead paint is and in some areas how to get rid of it, right?
Right,
Yeah.
because my issue is I am willing to help. However, when I speak to communities, when I
Yeah.
speak to municipalities, their heads are in the sand, and it's the I don't care mentality because the EPA just dropped this on us.
Because no one's issuing penalties, but that doesn't mean they don't comply. Right, yeah, okay. So
Many of them aren't compliant
Fine.
because I've spoken to many.
Yeah.
And so
So
I
that's
think
why
what
we're
you're
hosting,
suggesting,
yeah.
I think what you're suggesting, if I'm gathering right, is that there is a compliance obligation
Mhm.
on the
Absolutely.
part of local governments to ensure that
The safety.
Yeah.
that lead paint inspections are occurring. And you've been trying to make municipalities aware of this. And that you are available to perform inspections, but folks are not getting the message that they owe this point of compliance to the state or federal government.
The municipalities themselves,
The sound, yeah, they're supposed to be doing it. Yeah,
correct.
Got it.
That's where the problem is.
yeah, exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Maybe you can be a speaker at our conference.
Please, sir. Yes.
Anyone else like to speak before I start running my mouth here? Commissioner Candace. Thank
Lisa.
you. Lisa, that fast. And I should know that when my wife's watching me and it's her name. Thank you for coming out this evening. It's greatly appreciated. In more than one way, it helps us to understand where you folks are coming from. DEP to me, and I think a lot of folks is somewhat of a monstrous bureaucracy that is hard to deal with. And you coming out to us speaks volumes. It is greatly appreciated. It puts a face and a personality behind your name and your positions. I know you're busy. I know you have a lot to do. And but I did a couple of comments I wanted to make. Was I look around the room this evening and I can count at least 12 Salem City residents. Salem City tonight is well represented with its residents. I do not see any of its elected officials. Hopefully they are. Hopefully they are. The concerns and the problems that you hear this evening are brought to our council and mayor. And what you're hearing tonight is frustration. It's become emotional. A smart man, an attorney, taught me in public speaking to have a point and make your point. That what you're doing tonight is greatly appreciated. I got off point on trying to make that point, and I apologize. I do have a personal ask.
Please.
It's exactly like Leon's, but different. I did put it in a formal letter. I left it with one of your aides.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you taking a minute, take a look at it. I don't want to be redundant, but I'm getting about an hour away from my bedtime. About an hour ago and sitting in that chair, I would have done a lot better.
You're doing just great, Lou.
But Commissioner and folks, I greatly appreciate the folks coming out. I wish there were a whole lot more. Like I said, Salem City is well represented here, and PSC&G, thank you for hosting this. And anything we can do or I can do to help you folks, please let us know.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Thank
And
you.
I will indeed read your letter. So just a couple of reflections here. I know that there are a number of folks who joined us this evening concerned about the circumstances affecting the water and sewer department. And while I certainly cannot speak for the local government, the Department of Environmental Protection regulates the local government with respect to its provision of safe water and its provision of safe wastewater services. And folks here can be assured that from that perspective, we will absolutely examine the circumstances that I know are of concern from the points that were raised here this evening, Janice has promised me follow-up materials, which I will, of course, read and take to heart. One of the things that we took a look at today on our tour was the water system itself. And we were introduced to a number of issues and compliance challenges and some of the circumstances that affect the water system, whether they're using surface water in order to deliver their water, or whether they're using groundwater sources, and some of the constraints technically that exist in that space. And while sitting here tonight, I don't have all of the details and therefore certainly not an answer. What I can promise is our very serious evaluation of the circumstances there. Now, we don't get to decide whether a water system is able to effectively sell itself, right? Water systems that are public assets are owned by the people, right? Represented by their government. And what I can tell you is that what you are doing tonight in sharing your concerns, and whether it is a concern about water quality or a concern about water affordability, they are of paramount importance to you as they are to us. And it'll get our really hard look. And my advice and ask back to you would be not to be shy about sharing that perspective in all the spaces that you occupy, and let your local and your county and your state leaders know about your perspective on this issue. In our role, which is focused on public health and safety and quality, be assured that I have heard you, and I will read everything that you send to us. And when we have a more intelligible answer to share, informed by that, we certainly will. And I thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. So just want to wrap up and say thank you so much for taking your time, for showing up tonight, as the commissioner was saying, and to leave off on a point that Lou was making about how can we help. The best thing you can do to help us is to show up, to continue to show up, to let us know about your concerns. We wouldn't have known any of the things that I was sitting here taking notes about unless you came and told us. So thank you. We can't always be here every day in Salem, but we're only one phone call or email away. So please do see my team for all the information to stay in touch with us. Lisa?
Oh, great. Yeah, so thank you. I just want to say a quick thanks also, obviously, for taking time out of your evening to spend with us and share all the information, and the yeses and the nodding the heads. We saw that too. So we appreciate your participation also. And we take, as I mentioned before, we take back the notes and the information. And even on our way here, the commissioner and I were already thinking of, how to inform I guess it's Salem County, Salem City, on the different opportunities and maybe resources available for the water concerns that were raised around funding and all that. So we're already focusing on that. And yes, we do take the notes and your information and try to figure out ways how to come back with ideas and solutions, working with all of you. So we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
And thank you all again for joining us. Thank you, EPA, to our team at OE in the Office of Environmental Justice who puts this together, PSE&G for your hospitality. There's just one thought that I'll leave you with this, and it's this, and my team is probably tired of me saying it, but it's really, really important and easy to forget, which is that the environment, the air, the land, the water, fish, the wildlife, all of it, it doesn't belong to the government, right? Just like that open space and that beach doesn't belong to the government, right? To private property owners. Our entire environment belongs to everyone, belongs directly to people. It's only our job to take good care of it for you. And coming out and showing up and sharing your perspective helps us to do that. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for hosting.